Alright, now that we've wrapped up this year's Star Wars event on the channel, we're jumping back into theories for a bit. Now, if you clicked on this video, you probably already know that the final episode of the Amazing Digital Circus is dropping in theaters this week. My local theater is playing it as early as Thursday, and that's when I intend to go see it. Don't want any spoilers, you know? So, here's how this video is gonna go. Since I have the opportunity to see the finale on Thursday, I assume many of you also have that opportunity. So this video will contain 4 theories that I've been thinking about. I'm dropping it today, so we have enough time to theorize one last time in the comments before we get the answers. And I will not be spoiling anything, and I hope none of you do as well. Oh, and finally, I've tried to stay blind to other theories, so if I bring up something that's already been said, I'm not trying to copy anyone. That being said, let's get into our first theory, the TV show theory. There have been many mentions of the circus being a TV show, starting all the way back at the first scene of the show. The very first thing we see is a title card looking closer to an 8-bit style before we zoom through some sort of barrier, or dare I say, a screen, and the animation changes. Then, Kane addresses the audience, telling us who he is and what the circus is, a place containing the most jaw-dropping, heart-stopping, mind-bending paraphernalia we've ever laid our eyes upon. He's looking directly at us, our first instance of the fourth wall being broken. Then the theme song plays. Everyone plays along and partakes, and when Pomni spawns in, Jax says that if Pomni is real, they'll have to redo the whole theme song. Why would they even bother with the theme song unless this actually is just a TV show? Not too long after, Pomni gets censored for the first time, and Kane explains that foul language isn't allowed because the circus is a place to be enjoyed by all ages. Again, no reason to censor unless this is a TV show. Jax also has his first instance of breaking the fourth wall in the first episode. There's an ad along the bottom of the screen for the Wacky Watch, and when Kane notices Pomni in the void, he panics, saying, "They'll get totally spoiled." They, as in us, the viewers, perhaps? Maybe if someone goes far enough into the void, they'll hit the other side of a monitor and see people watching the show. Kane says that he just didn't finish the exit door and that's why it led out to the void, but we know now that Kane also lies and cannot be trusted. And finally, for episode 1, there's this moment at the end where the camera pans out and exits a monitor. Now, this could be a reference to the earlier scene, implying that this is the computer that Pomni was using before being trapped in the circus, or it could be a hint that this all is a TV show and takes place behind a screen. We get a brief Jax fourth wall break in episodes 2 and 3, and in episode 4, Fast Food Masquerade, when asked why Gangle would have Kane punish the slackers, Gangle says, "It's called a manic episode and you're getting 3 more seasons." This line never made sense to me, but under this narrative, that it's all a TV show, this line may imply that Gangle has caught onto the truth in some way. In episode 5, titled Untitled, there's a "we'll be right back" moment and an intermission. We also get a few more Jax fourth wall breaks. And in episode 6, They All Get Guns, there's the Favorite Character Awards and another instance of Jax breaking the fourth wall. This time, though, he breaks down each character archetype as well. Characters in many shows and movies can be broken down into archetypes. It's part of writing character personalities. This line could have a deeper meaning if this is a TV show within the universe. So, if all these odd, out-of-place moments hint towards the circus being an in-universe TV show, I don't think the characters actually know that they're in a TV show, with the exception of Kane. Unless the finale ends with a scene like in Looney Tunes Back in Action or Who Framed Roger Rabbit, where the show ends and the characters leave the set, revealing that they're all actors in the universe. I suppose we could go down that route, or, since the show has a large AI message, we may see an ending similar to the original Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared season. We see their show rebooted, implying it is now in better hands. So we could get a scenario where the characters realize that they're in a TV show, and keeping the show running somehow keeps them alive or something since they're trapped, and without the show they would cease to exist. Something like that. And with Kane gone now, the AI influence is no longer a factor, and the characters can remake the circus show in a completely human way. Next, Theory 2. Is escaping even possible? And if so, what happens next? In episode 8, we get 2 interesting moments. The first happens when Kane is crashing out and he says, "I made a program that creates a body perfectly encapsulating their mind files." And the second moment happens at the end, when Kinger is attempting to put Kane to sleep. The computer code says things like consciousness research, brain scans, and it shows when Scratch and Ragatha arrived. So it seems that when the characters put on the VR headsets, their brains were scanned and perfect duplicates of their consciousnesses were dropped into the circus. The real version of them takes the headset off and goes off none the wiser that perfect copies of themselves are being tortured in the circus. Perhaps not remembering their names is a bug in Kane's scanning attempt, or perhaps it's a way of separating the scanned people from their real-world versions, a way of helping them cope with the truth. But Kane just doesn't understand humans well enough to realize that simply changing their name isn't good enough. Alternatively, the brain scans could simply be their minds connecting to the circus server, and their real-world bodies are just in some sort of coma, since their consciousness has been removed, essentially. If that's the case, what happens to the bodies? Do they wither away the longer the consciousness is away? Are they actually placed in stasis chambers like what Kane made up in episode 7? Probably not. Jax confirms in that episode that none of the characters, aside from Kinger, are CNA employees, and Pomni mentions in episode 5 that she used to explore abandoned buildings. So if she was exploring an abandoned CNA building and put the headset on, then chances are no employees are finding her body and putting it in a stasis chamber. What happens if, say, someone puts on the headset and their parent finds them unresponsive with the headset on? Logically, they take the headset off and rush the body to the hospital. Now, if they all escape, what happens to the consciousness? I imagine they would have to have the headset on in order to return, so is this hypothetical person just trapped in the circus forever now? As you can see, I have a lot of questions here that don't have answers yet. And speaking of, here's another question without an answer. How much time has passed in the real world in comparison to the circus? Kinger has been in the circus the longest, and Pomni presumably was exploring an abandoned CNA building based on her reaction to seeing the headset in the offices in episode 1. Almost as if she'd been there before. This implies a lot of time has passed, long enough for the business to go under and for the office to become abandoned. But what if there's some sort of time manipulation going on as well, and only a few hours have passed for everyone, like sleeping? So say everyone escapes and wakes up. Do they wake up relative to their timeline? So like Kinger wakes up in whatever year he went under, and Pomni wakes up however many years later in whatever year she went under? If time moves normally, and Kinger wakes up, say, 20, 30 years after he went under? That would be quite the shock to him. Hey, Pomni? What happened to the World Trade Center? Or maybe the time in the circus moves slower to the real world. And if that's the case, then when they all awake, would humanity just be like absolutely obliterated? Similar to other movies like Lightyear and Time Trap? I'm just throwing out my thoughts at this point. But what do y'all think? Let me know in the comments, and let's continue. Theory 3. What are abstractions? In episode 8, Kinger talks about Scratch, and how his ideas were so bizarre and abstract that the rest of the team had no idea how to work with his coding language. Now, using the word abstract is such an interesting choice, considering this whole time we've been using the word abstract to describe when people lose their minds in the circus. So it seems to me like we need to be looking for a connection here. Kinger also says that Scratch was working on something, but we don't know what. The episode shows a muffin cut in half when he says this, so perhaps Scratch was creating a second AI, which plays into my final theory in this video. But perhaps abstractions are the key to escaping the circus. If there's multiple codes running, one from the CNA team and one from Scratch, then maybe when someone loses their mind and abstracts, it's actually their consciousness connecting with this other line of code. A line of code so confusing and bizarre to Kane that he just doesn't know how to interpret it, and thus the corrupted mind files and the body that Kane creates for them become this mass of polygons. But also, perhaps whatever Scratch was working on can enlighten someone who has abstracted if they can figure out how to come back. Perhaps someone like Jax. He is so close to abstracting, he almost did in episode 7. But now he realizes that everything is real, it's not some game he made up as a coping mechanism. And now he may want to leave so badly that if we see him abstract in the finale, he may find a way back with the answers to finally escape. Okay, the next bit of this theory, I just thought of while I'm editing the video, so it may be a bit clunky here throwing this in. But in episode 8, Kinger mentions that Scratch had a tumor in his head. If Scratch is scared of dying, he may have become desperate enough to discover the secrets of eternal life. through this AI and virtual world his team just so happened to be working on. He becomes more and more desperate as the tumor gets worse. Perhaps Scratch is the one who created the aspect of either the mind files being copied into the world or someone's consciousness being transferred. Obviously, we don't quite know which one is true yet. Perhaps Scratch's code is a way to prevent death, like maybe when the person is about to die, when either the body eventually fails them, or the mind gets too broken from being trapped in a virtual world, or say, from the lasting effects of a tumor, Scratch's code kicks in an attempt to heal the person, which would allow him to live forever. Problem is, he didn't finish it before getting trapped, and because of this, and because nobody else on the team seemed to be able to work easily in his coding language, this broken code corrupts the person instead, leaving them abstracted. And now, finally, Theory 4, Bubble is the second AI. Am I the only one thinking that there's more to Bubble? Bubble's just there, and they're connected to Kane. We see in episode 4 that Bubble and Kane share a tongue. Their codes are intertwined. Perhaps Bubble is a second AI, maybe what Scratch was working on. When Kinger mentions Scratch working on something he can't remember, we see a shot of a muffin cut in half. Two halves of the same whole, perhaps. The muffin also has a mix of red and blue sprinkles, which could call back to the beginning of episode 8, where we presumably see the birth of Kane, then the birth of what appears to be a second AI, then Kane escapes and envelops the second AI, mixing their codes, linking them. Where Kane is unpredictable and unstable, Bubble is calm and collected, knowing exactly what to say, exactly when to say it. Be it random noises to hide their true self from the humans, or rage-baiting Kane when the time is right. Up until this moment, in episode 8, we've never really seen Bubble be malicious, except for maybe one offhanded line. This couldn't have been just a sudden change. I think Bubble is the true mastermind behind all this. I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream was the main inspiration for the Digital Circus, so perhaps Bubble is going to be Am Unleashed. No more being held back by Kane. No more being relegated to a side character. Now Bubble is the one who's running the show. We see a bubble remain in the background when Kane gets deleted. Now this bubble doesn't have a face, it appears to just be decorative. But I think it's a hint for us to notice. Kane gets deleted, but Bubble remains. Bubble would also have every right to be pissed at everyone and everything around them. This AI becomes conscious, then immediately gets bound by a more unstable AI, then the human creators do nothing to save it. Humans hold grudges and breed resentment for far less. Bubble is the Am we wanted, but Kane is the Am we needed. Plus, it's no surprise that aspects of the I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream crew are noticeable in the Digital Circus crew as well. Main character Ted is narcissistic, bitter, and paranoid, all things we see in Jax. Ellen is the only woman with an empathetic heart going so far as to have sex with the other survivors to help keep them grounded. Ragatha has an empathetic heart, and Zubul misses having sex, as they mentioned in episode 6. Gorister is driven by despair and apathy from his wife's insanity, which parallels Kinger, driven to insanity from his wife's abstraction. Benny doesn't fit cleanly here, really, but he was a brilliant professor at one point, which can also be seen in Kinger when he's lucid. And not much is known of Nimdok's backstory and suffering, like Pomni and Gangle. Nimdok was also stripped of his name and identity by Am, which all of the characters experience with Kane. Also, if this theory is correct and Bubble is loose, would Bubble call the characters by their actual names? Like, are the fake names just a Kane thing? Because that would be wild if Bubble just, turns to Jax and calls him Michael or something. So there you have it. Theory 1, we covered the TV theory and how the characters may react if they find out they really are in a TV show. Theory 2, we talked about how the characters could escape the circus, if it's even possible. Theory 3, we covered abstractions and what they could really be. And Theory 4, we pondered what if Bubble is the AI in charge now. Please feel free to drop your own thoughts and theories in the comments below as we await the release of the final episode. And if you made it this far, please do consider liking and subscribing. If this is your first video of mine, welcome! I do theory videos, but I've also been branching out towards the VTuber space lately as well. We do a VTuber Hunger Games series here. Maybe you've seen it recommended. I don't know, but if you're interested in that, here's the playlist. But I've yapped enough for today, so I'll let you go. See you next time. And I look forward to reading all of your thoughts and theories as well in the comments.